And in today's video, we're going to be talking about garden suites. And so we've brought on our local expert, John from BlackJack Contracting, just to kind of get the contracting perspective, maybe some guidance or, insights. Obviously, this is a very evolving and hot topic. I imagine you're getting tons of questions about it, John.
A ton. So yeah, it's been a hot topic. There's a lot of questions, but the problem is there's a lot more unknowns right now, but we're going to talk to you about what at least we do know.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about everything garden suites. So I have been really excited by the garden suite stuff we've been talking about in Barrie with our realtor sponsor, Colby. So I thought, let's bring on John from BlackJack Contracting and really talk about from the contractor's perspective and what he's seen in kind of the Hamilton and Brantford area, because I think we all know that garden suites will be soon just sweeping across Ontario, at least, because I think it's going to be one of the new real estate investment strategies that a lot of investors are going to be looking towards to maximize the potential when they're buying a property or when they're looking at their existing portfolio of properties. So again, if you guys enjoyed this video, smash the like button, hit subscribe, and let's jump in and really discuss with John what he's seeing when it comes to these garden suites.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about garden suites. And so we've brought on our local expert, John from BlackJack Contracting, just to kind of get the contracting perspective, maybe some guidance or, insights. Obviously, this is a very evolving and hot topic. I imagine you're getting tons of questions about it, John.
A ton. So yeah, it's been a hot topic. There's a lot of questions, but the problem is there's a lot more unknowns right now, but we're going to talk to you about what at least we do know.
Yeah, so let's just kind of jump into it. So I think even part of the reason people are so excited is I've had Colby Marshall from Barrie on my channel talking about Barrie and both Aurelia have some very clear guidance, and they seem to be some of the early adopters to garden suites or building these additional dwellings. So I know a bunch of people are hyped up. So in general, I guess, what should we be taking into consideration or any perspectives you'd like to share with the audience?
Absolutely. So again, I'm not an expert on these yet. We're learning as much as we can because it's going to become a very popular situation in the investor world. As you're right, Barrie was, I believe, the first one to do it, because I do know somebody that's done like 30 of them already, but they're in Barrie. So down this way, they're all getting approved by city councils on stuff, but it's not. Some cities have approved it. Some cities have the guidelines, but haven't approved them. So to actually tell you what it's going to take down to the thing, we don't know yet. But we do know a few things about them, and we know that you're going to have to work with your designers and architects to make sure the lot sizing works, and there's going to be a lot of pre-planning these, not just go jump into construction. But some of the things that we do know we got to consider is that utility companies do not allow multiple services to come into a single residential property. So something like hydro is going to be one of the easier ones to deal with. How we're going to service them with water. The main problem we have now is how we're going to do the sewage, underground sewage for obviously sewage water, gray water, because we're not allowed to bring a separate service in from the street. We have to tie into your main house. Now that's all underground, and you got to think about the depth we have to tie into that. So that's going to be your main challenges. Things we got to consider, like, is how we're going to heat and cool these places, because running gas heat, these are smaller dwellings, so putting a furnace in is probably going to be unlikely or not cost-effective gas lines. So one thing we're probably going to be talking about is using electric heating, maybe ductless splits, but then that's going to make sure that your house actually has the ample service size. So basically, actually building these things isn't going to be a real challenge. It's going to be servicing them.
Gotcha. And then I guess otherwise, when we're looking at it, markets like Barrie, Aurelia, they were kind of first past the post and releasing some of, or like allowing it. So we can turn to them for maybe general guidance. But as you mentioned, like, this is going to be so city specific. Like, I can only imagine what my hometown of London, they're going to come up with some sort of quirky rule or some sort of caveat. And really the devil is in the details here. So again, when we're looking at it, it's even more than just necessarily just the building itself. We also have to take into consideration like parking, right? It seems like so far parking is always a consideration, where as we add units, pretty much every municipality, every city wants to see the parking density increase as well, because again, those cars, if people are going to live in these new dense neighborhoods, they often don't want to see them on the streets.
That's right.
And
we know that we need at least one parking spot per unit. We have to make sure that we're going to meet the minimum guidelines. So more than likely when we build these things, we're going to be looking at minor variances, which are going to add time. So these aren't going to be quick projects by any means, but I mean, they're going to be awesome projects. Certain cities like, for example, Kitchener's already saying that you can, have secondary, a triplex and a garden suite. So there could be chances to get 2 units on a property. Cities like London's already kind of given us the guidelines. They're going to be what London is, just like Hamilton. Hamilton's going to be a real difficult spot because they're strict on parking. So there's definitely going to be minor variances and variances involved. When it comes to the actual construction of them, if you have an existing building, obviously we're going to be able to retrofit these things for a decent budget. The problem is when you're building a new structure, even though they're smaller, the cost reward is going to be a little bit challenging because you're building whole new foundations. Now, we're probably not going to go in the ground, but we're still going to need a foundation. You're building the structure, a roof, siding. It's like basically building a whole new house. So the cost on them are going to be hefty on those ones, on the actual square foot per price. But I mean, if you look at the overall value, it should be worth it. One of the bigger challenges I think we're all going to consider is how are the appraisers going to value these things, because there's nothing to compare them to, especially in new cities.
Yeah, especially those new cities, the first few people, those definitely will be challenges for a lot of investors that are looking to be able to simply like rinse and repeat burr these out, right? It sounds great in theory, but the first few people will really have to set the precedent in regards to those comps.
That's right. So I mean, I've already even started to work on one in Brantford. It's an old barn. It's going to be like 1,000 square foot garden suite, but it's obviously a huge property, right? So when I get more information, I'll definitely spread it on, but I think it's going to be a real interesting world. And I think it's going to be the hot button topic. Duplex conversions are still a hot thing, but I think these are going to become the new ones.
Well, yeah. And I think we're going to see a lot of people wanting to kind of do both too. Like where they're like, let's take this bungalow, turn it into a duplex, and then also build this auxiliary or garden suite. So John, for people that are like, hey, this sounds cool, this sounds interesting, I'm kind of curious, where should people turn to find out the rules and regulations about whether they can do this? Is it a matter of just going to your city website, calling your city planning department?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, and this is where it goes back to your team. So I would contact your local trusted BCIN designer, because they're constantly in contact with the city. And, going on the city websites, you might as well go read the Bible, right? I mean, you got to try to understand that. Even I don't understand. I just call the guy, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to have the interpretation between the cities and actually be able to read this stuff. So, I mean, if you're doing conversions now or you're working with a contractor, they're going to have that person on their team already. Just reach out to them. That's what I do. I work with the three or four local guys around here. They're already heavy into the planning for this stuff. And one of the guys out of Toronto has got a whole series on it. There's some also great webinars a lot of the investors and a lot of guys are putting out now too. So just get yourself versed, and then as the cities approve them, we'll know more.
Awesome. Yeah, that's some great advice. And so do you want to maybe touch upon, when we're looking at these garden suites, this is a little bit different than just renovating a property, right? Or that's my understanding. Right. Like we're getting into kind of Terry-on now because this is a separate dwelling.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the Terry-on, how they're going to do that yet, but it's completely different construction method, right? More than likely, we're not going to be putting a full foundations, and they're probably going to be what we call slab on grade. So you're going to have a pad footing, and you're going to be building the house upwards. So, but you still got to consider all the insulation needs. So they're not going to be like working with old structures; they're new structures. So the stuff we can get away with on existing builds by grandfathering rights, that'll be out the window unless you're working with an existing structure. As I said before, the underground utilities are going to be the main caveat behind all of this, how this is going to work. And then once you build the places, it's kind of like building a mini house, but it's definitely going to be a different construction method than just renovating your existing bungalow.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely appreciate you breaking that down for us. And so for someone, again, that first step is probably just reaching out to an engineer, chatting, learning a little bit about whether this can be done, or if our city or municipality starts to give us some guidance or information towards that. And because I also know this won't necessarily just be new investors looking to buy properties. I think there's also going to be a lot of us investors looking to make the most of our existing properties. So do you mind touching upon the Brantford project a little bit further? So was this a property that was acquired for that purpose, or did they just see an opportunity?
Yeah, so I got customers with both situations happening right now. They acquired this property for the main, it was an existing fourplex, big property, but it had this big barn that was being used as just some guy's workshop for now. And they bought it specifically for the fact that they can add this accessory dwelling unit, or sorry, additional dwelling unit on it. Where I have customers like in Welland, I have one customer that has over 7 properties in Welland, and 5 of them meet the land requirements to do an additional dwelling unit. So, he's had a cash flowing duplex for 3-4 years now. And all of a sudden now we're going to add another structure and just bump the cash flow up and the value of the property. So there's opportunities for both new investors and existing properties.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. And as far as like when we're looking at, either properties that maybe have that barn, that shed, that other thing, any thoughts or perspectives on what an investor should be taking into consideration? Because I'm imagining not all barns are created equal and necessarily going to be easy to convert into a living dwelling. So any perspective?
That's right. I mean, if you look at an existing, say, shed, workshop, garage, depending on the type of material, if you have a wood frame place that's already got a slab, that's something that's a great candidate. You have some people that just have like sheds that look like things, they are not going to be good candidates because they will not meet the minimum, even have the right framing. Or a lot of the old bungalows used to have like the block wall garages. Those are going to be good candidates. They're strong. They're going to be able to make them work. Basically, I think my advice would be is just to find out the minimum lot size, which each city will probably announce that pretty clearly on their websites. And that way you can measure that off quickly. And you got to check your parking situation because that's going to be everything with every city. You got to make sure there's at least one spot per car. The basic guidelines for car parking is 9.028 feet wide and 18 feet 9 inches long. What a lot of people overlook though is where that city property line is, because all of a sudden you have this beautiful front and I can easily put a car there, but where is the city line? Because that's the line that they're going to use to measure off your distance for parking. Again, I don't know if I even recommend that. That's why I say get a good BCIN guy on your team, because you can do this stuff on Google, the Google satellite, Google Maps, or whatever you want to call it, and you can actually look at the properties and you'll be able to tell pretty fast. Mm-hmm. But if you're one of those people that like to do the things themselves, just make sure you bring a long rollout tape measure with you, and usually you could tell city lines by tree lines, but that's going to give you a guideline. But before you go all in on buying a property just for that purpose, you really want to work with someone who knows what they're doing, because I've seen that too many times. Oh, we're going to build a garden suite. Well, they're not even approving that for 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Right, and that is a great point. Like, I do see investors oftentimes getting excited by headlines and not realizing that it may be a while before boots on the ground makes it practical for us to actually get into that investment opportunity or implement that specific strategy in a market. Yeah. So, and another thing you see is like the deal completely dependent on it. If your house can carry with a duplex and it's going to be a good long-term investment, then you're going to put that, garden suite in. All of a sudden you got a gold mine, right? But if you're completely dependent on the cash flow from that garden suite, that's something I wouldn't jump into yet. Yeah, really appreciate that perspective, John. So I guess just as we look to wrap this up, talking about garden suites, all that, any other last perspectives or pointers you want to share with the audience? Just be smart with the situation. Again, I've said it twice here, work with somebody that knows these things, because even for me, I can walk in and smell a duplex, but there's no way I know enough about these things yet to give people advice. And the problem is too many people give advice, right? Work with people that actually know what they're doing. And right now there's only a small group of people like those BCIN guys or engineers that actually know what we're even looking at yet, right? I don't even know. So it's just like, don't listen to the popular opinion, because each city has different rules. So what works in Hamilton won't work in London, and what works in London won't work in Hamilton. So it's just like, be smart with these ones. Don't rush into it. Work with the professionals. Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, John. Again, guys, this is a new kind of edge case strategy, right? I think we're going to see it get mass adoption. It's going to become very popular. But right now, there are very few people that have a lot of experience, that have a lot of credentials in the space. So I want to really encourage everyone, like, check those references, right? Like, make sure that you're actually getting someone that's done what they said that they've done in the past. Because again, I think a lot of investors are going to get into properties, unfortunately, that aren't going to fit or are going to be real struggles to shoehorn into this new opportunity or format. And it's simply going to be because they choose the wrong person to take advice from, rather than really leaning on people that truly know. So make sure you feel comfortable asking those questions, right? Get to the bottom of it. Make sure you've got certainty. And if you're uncertain, take a beat. Don't get emotionally caught up in this fear of missing out on that deal. It's much better to know with certainty that you've got a business model that's going to work, rather than that fear of missing out, which I see a lot of people with.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate John. Reminder, guys, John actually has his own YouTube channel where he's producing great YouTube content related to being a contractor in your real estate construction projects. So reminder, we'll throw a link in the video description down below. Encourage you guys to go check it out. Give John a sub. And otherwise, if you want to get in contact with John, he's expanding and growing his business like crazy. In fact, you're calling us from a new office we were chatting about.
Yes, sir. We are. Just everybody's excited because everybody keeps calling me for Windsor. September 1st is the date. We will be there.
Oh, there we go. We got a date, September 1st, and he's already in London. So if you guys are looking to do projects out my way, you can already connect with John. And obviously, Hamilton's been his bed and bread. Oh man, that was a hard word for me somehow to get out. His bed. His bread and butter.
Bread and
wow.
butter.
Good Lord. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Smash the like button. I always love having you on, John. Just really appreciate your no-nonsense approach to real estate investing and contracting, and just sharing with us your experience. It really is valuable, and we really do appreciate it.
Anytime. Look forward to being back.
Thanks again to John for taking the time to shoot this video. If you guys enjoyed it, smash the like button, hit subscribe if you're new to my channel. And a reminder, John has his own YouTube channel where he's sharing his own experiences as a contractor here in Ontario, Canada. We'll throw a link in the video description down below. And reminder, John is now here in London, Ontario. So if you guys want to use John for your contracting projects in London, him up, link in the video description down below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.